gesso, I like to consider the wet area and the dry area. Here I have cold filtered water, and specifically cold. I'm using the Elmer's glue recipe and the gesso whiting. I like to pre-measure everything so we don't end up in a pickle. So, notepad, note to yourself. So the ratios are important. 3 parts gesso to 1 part glue. So if I'm doing 3 of these of the gesso, now this is going to make it real simple, real nice gesso, and a lot cheaper than buying it. And once you get used to it, it's real easy to make. Okay. So 3 of these, and put it in here. 1, now the ratio to remember, what's important is the glue to calcium carbonate ratio. The water is less significant. The more glue you add, now take notes and remember, the more glue you add, the less absorbent the ground will be. The less glue you add, the more absorbent. So if the reason why you want the gesso ground is you want it for absorbency. One of the reasons why I like the Elmer's glue has a tendency not to crack and craze, and it's a little softer glue than the hide glue. Hide glue is kind of a hard glue. 2. This will store in the refrigerator. I think you can get this to store in the refrigerator for maybe 10 days. There's no shelf life on the calcium carbonate, so that'll last forever. So 3 parts gesso, 1 part white Elmer's glue. Now this white Elmer's glue is getting harder and harder to find. I think I got this at Ace Hardware. A lot of people will tell you things like use 70% rubbing alcohol to get the bubbles out. And if you do this right, you don't need to worry about any type of bubbles. So you've got 3 gesso, 1 of these, and 1.5 parts cold distilled water. So that's out of the way, out of mind. I'm not going to make a mistake. So 1.5 parts water. Okay. Now the whole trick of it is this. You have your water and you have your glue. Put the gesso into the water, put it slowly like you would the plaster, and put it in first. This is the very trick of it all. What happens is the water is going to absorb the gesso, just like plaster. It's going to slake. And you don't want to stir it, you just want to let it be absorbed into the water. And there's no fiddling and fussing around with this. Just let it slake. You see that? That's just like a plaster with a little volcano cone. Okay, now to clean this up. You can stir it a little bit. But just let it sit there for a little while. Forget about it. And let it completely absorb. Now the more you stir, you're going to end up with air bubbles. Well, we're not gilding, we're putting on a paint surface. The brush will knock out all the air bubbles. I've seen people mix the water and glue together. Big mistake. The glue prevents the calcium carbonate from absorbing, and then you have to stir and you get the bubbles, and you have to add the alcohol. You've got to make a living doing this. You consider your time and materials. Okay. Well, that's a very nice consistency. Okay, so I did 3 to 1. So we're fine. Let that absorb for a minute longer. Okay, now I can add the glue. The mysterious gesso recipe, known only by the masters. This Elmer's is very good in their consistency of their product. Whereas the glue granules will vary in consistency from year to year. I mix the glue in, and look, no air bubbles. See that? No air bubbles. Air bubbles completely gone. It's like, this is like yogurt or sour cream that's been stirred. I'm going to stir it really well. Look, even though I'm stirring it like crazy, no air bubbles. See? Secret. You read Max Stirner and Jacques Maroger, they emphasize how important it is to have a correct ground. Probably half the book is donated or dilates on the importance of ground, canvas, board, the importance of the ground. Now this ground will not crack. You want to put it on, this will have good coverage. We prime it, do 100 grit sandpaper, 250 grit, lightly go over it. Okay. So far, if we've done this right, there'll be no, see, it's all flat. Now I want to preserve the weave and don't want it to be super thick. So we do, just like the others, start right in the center. Now, in between coats, we don't want it to dry completely in between coats because you have an adherence problem with the gesso. The gesso is going to want to fill up the weave. We don't want it to completely fill up the weave. Again, we work as though we're stretching a canvas. Now I can take notes and say, you know, I'd like this to have a little less glue in it or a little more glue in it. A little more water, a little less water. The ratio of glue to gesso is what's important. Always working opposite. This canvas will remain flat. This ground will not crack. Now here in Florida, it's quite humid, but if you're in the Rockies, this would be dry in 5 minutes. It may take 15 to 20 minutes. Then we still preserved the fine linen. However, one of the things that gesso is meant to do is so you can sand it smooth and create an ivory-like texture. But we're doing this for the absorbency. Now, I always rinse my brush out, but I like to get all the water out. And well, I've waited about 20 minutes, maybe half hour, to do the second coat. Go ahead and stir your gesso because the gesso will want to settle in the bottom of the cup. And again, I like to start in the center and work out. The trouble with the water-based pigments is they'll tend to want to loosen as you go along. The water-based, well, this is glue now. So we don't want them to lift. Again, try not to overbrush it. You're still preserving the texture of the linen, that's good. And do it like you're stretching a canvas. Put it on and then just leave it. Nice coat. Just make sure you get all the bubbles, little pinholes out. Pop in all those little bubbles that may occur. Okay. Now that will be a very nice absorbent ground. Now there's one ground that can be more absorbent than this one, and that's going to be the next one, the casein ground. So we'll do that next. We'll give this a sanding after it's dried in a day or two. You can tell if it's dried by the temperature. If it's room temperature, it's dried. Probably give it another day or two after that to cure. But waiting these insurmountable times is just, I mean, you can age a canvas, but I don't think it's going to benefit. But when it's completely dry, it'll be room temperature. And what we have here is a beautiful, elegant canvas. If we did it with the rabbit skin glue, we would have had to warm the water to blood warm, keep it blood warm, and also warm the glue to blood warm, and keep those things in circulation. The Elmer's glue just makes it a lot simpler. And So when this dries in a day or two, when it's no longer has a chill to it, then we can sand it.